Hey, I've been thinking of learning Catalan recently.
Yo, isn't that just basically Spanish?
No. Catalan might be the coolest Romance language, but a lot of people don't even know it exists. And a lot of other people will look at a map and they'll see that Catalan is primarily spoken in what is now called Spain, and they'll assume, oh, well, it must just be like Spanish. But if you think Catalan is just like Spanish, no sabes pro català. El català tem moltes cosas fascinantes y especiales, so let's get into what makes Catalan so special. So to start us off, Catalan is indeed primarily spoken right over here. In Catalonia, the Balearic Islands, the tiny country of Andorra right over there, and there's also Valencia, which has its own linguistic identity with Valencian, though linguists usually analyze it as another set of dialects of Catalan. The language as a whole is broadly divided into the Eastern dialects and the Western dialects, which differ especially in terms of their phonology, that is to say what sounds they use. Western dialects tend to pronounce things a little closer to how they're written, whereas Eastern dialects tend to reduce some of their vowels. So for example, if we take the name Barcelona, in a lot of Western dialects that'll be pronounced something along the lines of Barcelona, whereas in Eastern dialects it's just kidding, it's usually the case that a and e get reduced into a schwa, so you'll have Barcelona. But there's still quite a bit of variation between dialects even within those Western and Eastern categories. So that's pretty cool, but I know I was really hyping up Catalan earlier. What's this big thing that makes it so special compared to the other Romance languages? Well, I could talk about the spelling, I could talk about the consonant clusters, but the real magic of Catalan is in the grammar. If you're familiar with any of the other Romance languages, you've probably perceived personal pronouns placed in peculiar positions previously. Of particular prominence are those positioned prior and posterior to the predicate. Spanish, for example, lets you stack several pronouns onto a verb to convey exactly what you're giving to whom. So for example, if I were to be giving you a drying rack, I could say, este tendedero te lo voy a dártelo. But for Catalan, that's just the beginning. If I were to say there is a drying rack, in Spanish that's hay un tendedor, but in Catalan it's y ha un estendedor. Now if you speak French, you might think, that sounds quite a bit like il y a, which means the same thing. And indeed, Catalan y and French y are quite similar. They can both replace things like I want to go to Barcelona, you could replace the to Barcelona with y. And they can both do quite a few other things as well, but dare I say, Catalan y has a little bit more pizzazz. In many dialects of Catalan, you can use this pronoun to replace things like to her, to him, to them, etc. And that means that some particularly beefy sentences in Spanish and French, well, Catalan can just... And if you thought that was cool, there's a bunch of other pronouns too, and they can all get folded together and stapled onto verbs like a beautiful pronoun collage. Now that's a very rudimentary introduction, not to mention estic aprenent català, així que segur que he oblidat algun matís. But I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about, and fins després.